Okay, since I end the last presentation on area of possible contribution to raising overall productivity, as I said earlier on, just to elaborate on it, if you look at the structure of the GDP, the goods producing sector had been the main driver of productive growth in the Singapore economy over the last, say, 4 or 5 decades. The one area within goods producing which has been a little bit of a drag depending on the cycle has been construction. So if we are able to perhaps just focus a bit more attention, I suppose the government is already doing that on construction, how to raise overall productivity, hence this focus on example how construction in Australia, in Japan, in Korea can be a lot more productive through less use of people but more technology. We are able to bring up overall productivity on construction. So construction is not that small, it's 5% of the GDP, and given that we are forever remaking Singapore, it's important that that particular sector be as productive as possible or keep up with technology as much as possible itself. And as a result, the overall productivity within the goods producing sector, 1/4 of the GDP, can significantly make a difference to the overall GDP itself. Because it's much harder to me, I think, to talk about productivity within the services side itself. A lot of it in mindset, etc., change that have been made that perhaps may take a bit longer for Singaporeans to adopt and change mindset to working within services. But what we can do much more quickly is within the goods manufacturing sector, within construction itself, that 1/4 of the GDP, that perhaps can raise overall productivity quicker while we work on the longer term, the services side.
For the first time now, we saw there's something called a productivity innovation credits that's been given out here. But we noticed that the words is credits. It's actually tax incentives. Tax incentives basically target at those which are probably profitable companies which are probably high growth and competitive, etc. But I think we just emerged from last year where it was a financial crisis. There have been a lot of companies who are, one, bleeding, and some, actually, if anything, they will be just breaking even. So I think some of these companies are actually feeding back and say, hey, are they being considered in here? We saw some $1.1 billion being put up, or close to $2 billion for the national productivity. I think there were sentiments are reflecting that could that be looked into for the lower tier or the middle tier companies, those who are breaking even and those who are not so profitable, right? And especially I think when they look at the cash flow part where when they start investing in all these productive devices, machineries, we saw in the productivity innovation credits, there were some 6 categories into it: patents, registration, acquisition of intellectual properties, automation, design, and stuff like that. Some of this, like automation for manufacturing, basically are expensive. I mean, you talk about productive machineries, it actually ranges from some 1 million and onwards. Even the SMEs, when they look at it, they have no choice but to actually expend that amount. But in terms of the cash flow wise, it may not have that much then. So the sentiments was looking at, can we look towards that? But fortunately, I think in terms of the comfort of, there have been a layer of budget that looks at how to invest in our people. We saw there were WTS, workforce training scheme, and also the enhanced workforce income supplement. There's been anticipation that we'll be withdrawing the SPUR scheme, or probably that will be scaled down in terms of the job credits as well. So I think WTS and WIS hopefully will be able to supplement that part where companies are concerned. Right. So I think basically on this 2 points, I think that's what we have been hearing, and we hope that there could be something that could be announced more towards on the grants aspect to enrich it, to allow companies to be more liquid in terms of the cash flow there.
The 2009 budget, to me, the winner was the job credit scheme, and that was to save jobs. And 2 main issues at that time, cash and jobs. The consequence of giving us the job credit scheme is that jobs are saved, banks, and therefore property prices didn't collapse, and the whole nightmare would have come if property prices collapsed. It seems that that phase has passed, and I still hear there are SMEs that are still in trouble, and we still struggle with costs. So that we have to help. Maybe Spring Singapore can add on to some of the grants that we give in terms of helping companies innovate. But let's focus on this year now, 2010. It's another credit, it's not job credits scheme, but productivity and innovation credit. This is quite expensive, as in it covers many areas. It is to promote winners. If we get this right, potentially the PIC could be a winner for this year's budget. And it's longer term, it's harder to measure because it takes time to innovate. But what my main point is, it definitely takes more than one to clap, meaning at each company level, you do have to do what you are basically given. You have to do those things to basically improve yourself. And on top of that, take advantage of this credit that is given. And the other side of it, I must say, is how the different bodies implement it. This scheme appears good, but if things are tightened, things are not implemented properly. If it is too tight, then again, the taxpayer will, in many schemes, they will say, it's too difficult. Let's not go for it. So I would say the balance must be there in terms of the implementation. And of course, we have to watch and see how that is done. So that, to me, will be the main thing for this year's budget.
The other feedback that has come in is, given two SMEs, one who has automated to the best he can, and the other who has not automated at all. The guy who has automated and was a good boy in the past has said, hey, now my competitor, he gets all this credit, and now he leapfrogs over me, even though I'm the one who had invested earlier. So why is the government helping him and not me? So I suppose we try to explain to him that it's not to reward, it's not to give reward, it's to help people improve. I mean, that's the feeling he gets,
Why would he be excluded? Because he could still be looking at his next phase of...
Yeah, assuming that he
innovation,
can't automate anymore. So he feels that he's hit a brick wall.
Okay.
But this guy who was a laggard, maybe not as talented, not as forward looking as him, is now able to take use of this productivity credit, this new winner, so to speak, to leapfrog over him. But maybe this is a question of education.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I don't think any of us can say that we'll ever end complete innovation. So your point about really helping them understand where else
It's
can
education.
they improve,
It's education,
and the fact that they need help not just financially, but they need help from consultants and experts to be able to help them look at new areas. I think that's also an important aspect.
Yeah. One other thing that they're actually eagerly awaiting is the Exim Bank proposal, which I think has been put on hold until details are worked out.
Yeah.
So I think they are eagerly looking forward to something that will actually have grassroots support for smaller SMEs, trade finance and even project finance.
Okay.